Okay, with the Bryan Ribeiro, Raising is the short film. It's 19 minutes long from the United States. You're in New York State, I guess, right?
Yes, yes, I am, Matthew.
And you wrote and directed the film. I like this film a lot. It's basically about food. It's about love. It's about father-son relationships. I just wanted more. I'm curious when you kind of came up with this idea for this short film.
Yeah, so the big motivation for me was fear. I was uh always scared of groupthink, mob mentality, and this film explores that with an organization. And I always try to figure out why somebody would join something like this
Like a
sort of
kind
like
of a cult, I guess, right?
it's 100% a
Yeah.
cult. So why would somebody join like a hive mind type situation? It's usually because they just lacked a community of their own, and often enough, that's
Mm.
like their family. And sometimes they don't have a passion, but this could run the gamut of being like, uh, joining a Twitter mob to something more political to something more, ephemeral. It just happens to be in this case like a cult. Yeah.
Yeah. Have you ever been invited to something like one of those like organizations like that before?
Yeah, I have. So when I was a kid, so I'm Brazilian, so we have a very large Catholic demographic, and there are a lot of evangelicals, which are the super serious Catholics.
Yeah.
And I think as a kid, I went to one circle where some pastor of sorts was touching everyone's foreheads and they were passing out at the touch. And I became a part of that performance. Nothing was happening to me when he touched my forehead, but I went down with them.
Yeah.
And it's nothing to say that these people were bad or anything, malevolent or anything like that. But I always became curious as a result of like that group thrust that happens when your mindset just totally changes when you get into like a dynamic like that. So that was always super curious. And then I saw friends of mine join Scientology
Yeah.
specifically. So yeah, which is like a big inspiration for this short film, and how that like ironically for joining a group, it becomes a very isolated feeling.
Yeah, 100%. It's I think it's happiness or that you're better than than the rest of the people or money. Those are the kind of the three, from my experience, the three kind of motivations for these cults, right? Like it's like you're
Ha-
not happy, we can make you happy, or
Have you
you're
been to
poor,
one?
we can make you rich, or basically
Yeah.
you're better than everybody else, right? So it's like
Were
it's
you in it? Were you in a new age type of cult type of thing for a little
no,
bit?
I just remember getting invited when I was like, I was,
Yeah.
I've had many lows, many highs, I guess, but basically getting
Yeah.
invited, somebody who I trusted at the time said, "Oh, I want you to come to this meeting." And I
Yeah.
didn't think anything of it because I was in the arts, film. I thought we are just gonna, it was gonna be like a film kind of thing. And then
Yeah.
it's like this big organization where like that basically it was intense, right? They were very intense with you.
Hmm.
It's like there it was very judgmental too. They were trying to tell you like
Yeah.
how not right you are, I guess, right?
Mm.
How you lack happiness, how you lack fulfillment, and how they're gonna change that for you, right?
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
like high sales, right? It's like very intense high. It's like it's very salesmanship, right? So
Yeah. And even that is like Wall Street bro culture and stuff like that could be part
yeah.
of like that cult mentality. So especially in the opposite ends of the coast where a lot of progressivism happens. So New York has like a lot of like cult like groups and stuff. LA, I'm sure, new age sort of like things that were coming out in the 70s.
Well, yeah, there's a certain religion that's very prominent in Los Angeles that I don't
Yeah.
have to say it out loud. Yeah, yeah, that a
Yeah,
lot
yeah.
of people are a part of, right? So, and
Yeah, and they all come from Florida. Yeah, yeah.
so no, but it also too, but your character, nice guy, but he's not. He hasn't hit his fulfillment. So you use kind of him being a chef, him like being kind of a creative person, and like he works at a fast food restaurant. So
Yeah.
he's technically a cook, but
Yeah.
it's not. There's nothing fulfilling there, right? So he's looking for happiness. He's looking for satisfaction in his life. So then, therefore, he is prone to these type of organizations, I guess, right?
No, I mean you hit the nail on the head with that one. I think when you are just trying to strive for a goal and you don't meet it, you have a level of disappointment in yourself. And a lot of times that's what happens when you join these sort of groups is you've been recently divorced or you can't quite make it to the echelon that you want to reach. And as a result of that, don't have a support system to back you, as if same with the main character who didn't connect with his dad to support him. He ended up finding family somewhere else.
Yeah, 100%. So I'm watching a very weird, strange coincidence. I'm rewatching House of Cards.
Yes.
One friend of mine was telling me about it, watching it, and it
Yeah.
was like we were like, I gotta watch the show because there's that negative connotation now because of the main actor of the film of the show. But I'm like, I'm gonna rewatch it. So I'm watching the show, and then all of a sudden I'm watching festival films, and one of the main characters
Yes.
of House of
Yeah.
Cards is in your movie, Nathan Darrow.
Yeah. Yeah. So his story is pretty straightforward. I was just cold emailing a lot of folks with the idea, the budget, and the peripheral information, and his agent responded. Me and him then spoke and we clicked. He's not far from where I live, funny enough, state-wise. So I'm in New York, he's in New Jersey.
Okay.
So he was interested in it. He had a kind of subdued charisma that we wanted to sort of like emphasize. Um, and he was just a keep. I like he was so great on set, constantly on, and he was suggesting ideas. One thing he suggested was instead of having the leader, the cult leader, drink alcohol, why don't you just have him drink water? Because he wouldn't, taint his taste buds with something like that.
Yeah.
Someone that puritanical. And it's very small, but in there's a scene where everyone's drinking beer and he's the only one that's not. And I was like, oh, that's such a great idea. Yeah, let's do that. Even though it's subtle, it's small, it lends itself to his just thought processes. So, and it was a challenge for me to try and direct somebody who had experience. This is a guy who's, worked opposite the greats, like Robert De Niro and other people on set as well. So he's just been a massive get.
Well, he worked like four straight seasons, spoilered, until he was no longer with the show.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
but for Kevin Spacey, who, like whatever you want to say about him, he's a great actor, right? So I'm sure he got a
Yeah.
lot of nuggets from that experience.
Yeah, he must have. Just I think that's what happens in the arts in general, is just being
Yeah.
around people who you value and who are good, and then you just learn through osmosis just by absorption around them.
Yeah, it's a great find because he's perfect for the character, right? Like a handsome, in shape, like white dude. He's
Yeah.
balanced, like he's not
Yeah.
intense, but he's got that
Yeah.
perfect kind of salesmanship kind of like persona, I guess, right? So
Yeah, I think subdued charisma is there. If you look into his eyes long enough, there's an intensity that starts to come out, but he can quickly diffuse it with like a wry dad joke for sure.
and so tell me about so the your main character. So tell me about finding him because he's obviously in every scene. So obviously very important for your film to have a good.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I've known him for like a decade.
Okay.
We went to the same school together. We're best friends.
Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah, and he just happens to be an actor, and I try to get him in as much stuff as I possibly can because I know he's good. And so Reginald Keith Jackson, just to name him there, is fantastic. He just is a working actor. He's has like multiple gigs, multiple jobs to keep himself afloat. And I thrusted the idea into his palm about like, hey, do you want to do this? And, it took him a little bit, I think, in terms of response time from what I can remember. I didn't get an immediate response because I think he was, at a bit of a crossroads himself, in terms of what he wants to do with his life. But he decided to help me out and do this. And we recently had a showing of the film. Oh my God, what's today? Wednesday? We had it 2 days ago in Manhattan, and he was sitting next to me, just nervous as can be, his shirt all the way up to his, his face and stuff like that. He's an incredible, empathetic, kind, um, man who is just and friend who's just been there with me through a lot of events. We've cried in front of each other, we've laughed in front of each other, we've gotten inebriated in front of each other in all kinds of different settings. So he's just my man. So
So
he's
the
just my
body fluids, you've done so had some body fluids experience.
exactly.
Okay, then look is all the locations like the outside, the inside of his apartment with his dad, obviously the whatever the cult kind of setting. Where did you
Yeah.
like? Was this all in your neighborhood? Where did you find all these locations?
I think you've been getting it every single time correctly. Yeah. So the apartment is my place. We had to do a Kickstarter to get some funds for the project and stuff like that. So we were able to get some finances to help us rent out a backyard that's local to us and stuff like that. People were able to lend out a corporate office, a place I used to work at as a video editor. And yeah, it's just been either through loans or through like different places. I think the story kind of was the most intriguing part for a lot of people. Some people kind of back off at the idea of like a cult because that's a very vague term. That can mean a lot of things to a lot of
Yeah,
different people, and that's kind of a controversial, topic for some folks who wanted to even like contribute to the project because they didn't want their faith specifically to be uh, admonished or anything like that. And I don't, and that's not what I'm trying to do with the film at all. Everyone has their own particulars in terms of
yeah.
what they believe in. But then when you start asking people for like money or for their bodies or for
Yeah.
their attention in a certain kind of way, then the cult of personality starts to become negative. So yeah. So
Well,
all
you're
yeah,
not
sorry.
taking a shot against organized religion, though. But I guess
No, no,
people,
no.
yeah,
No, no, no. My mom is Catholic. I was raised Catholic. A lot of my friends are Christian or Muslim or some other kind of secularism that I don't know. Uh, and some are just spiritual and they don't have an organized religion to them. So any gradation of that is not something I'm trying to target. What I'm trying to target is something a little bit more explicit and organized, and ironically enough, sometimes more therapeutic than organized religion can be when it comes to these kind of like cults of personality, because they're more immediate. They often target you with love bombing. They're
yeah,
not as vague potentially as religion or other faiths can be. So they're a lot more dangerous.
yeah. I love the relationship with him and his dad, right? Because you kind of set the tone where
Yeah.
later on, like in a couple minutes later, we learn that he loves cooking. He loves like he's a chef, but he gives his dad the TV dinner, right? Like it's sort of
Right.
like it's symbolically it shows where his relationship with him right there, right?
I didn't catch that. I think that was a good interpretation on your end. I think it was just a matter of convenience for the dad who just wants like wings or fast food or Chinese food from the
Yeah,
corner, nothing crazy. But his son wants to try and give him this dinner, but what it represents to the dad is a bit of hoity-toityness. The dad is an immigrant, so he's far more practical. I'm the son of an immigrant, so there's a level of practicality that is involved when you like eat just for sustenance as opposed to something for art. But if you have food and you have shelter and you have, medicine, what else can you want to really, what else do you need to actually live? In the case of Conroy, the main character, in his case, it's his art and just which happens to be cooking. And
yeah.
it's a very personal art. It's the only art that we actually physically consume, digest, and process in that way.
No, it is interesting because there's certain, like you talk about immigrants, like they food to them is survival. It's nothing, it's not like joy, I guess, right? Like it's basic stuff. It's like you consume it to survive, right? Like it's not, and it makes sense to certain people who are,
Absolutely, yeah.
yeah. So, but then yeah, with him, he's the next generation, right? So, but then
Mhm.
but at the same time, he's there for his dad. He's taking care of his dad.
Yeah.
So he loves his dad, but there's a lot, obviously the connection's lost, I guess, between the two of them.
Connections lost. They once it's been hinted that there was, the mom was involved that kind of bridged the gap between them, and without her there, unfortunately, and just that pain surfacing to the top, there's like communication issues start to arise, especially with more males in the family. I feel like they can kind of tend to withdraw and not want to talk about that kind of stuff. So I think Conroy was always trying to get to his dad, if not verbally, at least through the food, because that's what, kind of opens people up a lot of the time is when you go to meetings with people, at least face to face, often enough you're going to get some lunch or you're going to get some coffee or something like
Yeah.
that.
So you force the audience to really root for this guy. You want him to be you want him to be okay. You want him to
I
succeed.
think so. I think so. I think he's just lost. You mean the dad or the son?
Well, the son, yeah, like he's the
Yeah.
main character, right? So yeah,
Yeah, I think so. I think he makes mistakes. I do want people to root for him, but I do want people to um also because he does, steal at some point. He does do an act that isn't great. It's a horrible act considering that where he steals from is a piece of small chest that is clearly feminine. So it doesn't necessarily belong to his dad. It belonged to someone else. So there, that kind of act, needs to be addressed. And he apologizes, and the dad wasn't really willing to, talk about kind of stuff. So we'll talk about that kind of stuff, maybe later through a text and stuff. So yeah,
yeah. And it's funny that he connects with his dad via text, like without getting anything away. Like
yeah,
that's the connection finally comes through text. Like
I think
they're
so.
separated, but there's a connection.
Yeah, yeah. I think the dad is just like a lot of dads has to reach either a point of super discomfort to finally talk to their son,
Yeah,
um, or they do it in a way that is like roundabout. Like they'll show their love language will be a lot more different.
yeah,
So I think in the case of the dad, he'll send misspelled texts trying to like convey his feelings to his son.
sure. And then we learn too that like the matriarch of the family is gone, right? So like
Yeah,
the person who brought them together, which
yeah,
happens a lot, and then when somebody, the patriarch or the matriarch, when the leader of the family dies, I mean, there's a vacuum. There's a lack of communication happening, right? So
yeah. And there's a character that kind of fills in that hole with Christina or Kristen,
yeah,
who's played by Christina. She's fantastic in that too. There's an airiness about her that she just kind of floats around a little bit, which I really like about her performance. And whereas like Hank kind of grounds or the cult leader grounds like everything around them. And I love that kind of dynamic. It was like you know, just a mom and dad duo, 1-2 punch for Conroy to not be able to escape from.
so is there a bigger story here, or is this like a standalone short film?
I've spoken to my producer and she wants to make it into a feature-length film. We're thinking that that is pretty doable. It's a pretty dense story for it's
Yeah,
19 minutes long. That's a really long piece of time for a short film. And thank you for you and the team to actually, accept the film and, put it amongst your gallery. And I really appreciate that. And um we're not sure, but we're thinking, yeah, we will go down this route. But we'll see. We'll see how it's starting just to gain some traction now. So we'll see what happens.
so yeah, you mentioned the screening. So that was New York Shorts International Film Festival that played a couple days ago.
Yep, exactly. You got the memory right there. You got your
No,
research to
I'm
your
on
side.
your Instagram page.
There it is. You got the research to your side. You got your 24/7 kind of
Union
layout.
Square. It's near Union Square, right? The theater.
Yeah, funny enough, I used to go to school there as a student, college there at the new school, Parsons, the new school for design. So it was a weird, kind of full circle moment for sure.
Yeah, that's good. It's a good festival. So then you get to do the Q&A afterwards, or
We did a little Q&A. We had a question about what is that red machine that is being used in one of the scenes there. That was my favorite question. Like, what is that? What is that shit? I love that. Yeah.
and so then and the character we didn't talk about the character who plays the dad. It's
Oh
not
yeah,
an easy
Anthony.
role to find. Like it's like where'd you get him?
Oh, he's fascinating. Just a normal. I think it was just backstage, but he was the only one who, funny enough, didn't follow the script. He was just off the cuff, and he had the he had the presence and the I don't know, the gravel to his voice, and he was good with accents, and he tried a couple of different things. And I was never sure how we should go about the dad, and he just sort of fit the role that was ambiguous for me. And the fact that he brought a level of randomness to what it could be considered a stoic role
Yeah,
was ironically just the perfect thing for it. I think he stands out as a presence. I think his face, when it pops up in certain moments, has a lot of gravity to it. So he was fantastic, as everybody was.
So okay, so then you have an idea for the feature. So then how many shorts have you made to date?
Three shorts.
3 shorts? So you're
Yeah.
ready for a feature.
Yeah, I think so. I've done a feature length before, but it was really low budget. So I think it's about time I get back into that game. I do think it'll be outside of the crowdfunding area though, and that's a different conversation, of course. But yeah, we're going to try and like break in, I think, into the grant community investors and see what happens as a result. It's a territory I'm not familiar with, so that's more of my producer question. But yeah.
And what did you think if we sent the audience to you? What did you think what our audience had to say about your film?
It was interesting, man, because there was people who were a little bit older, there was people who were a lot younger who looked like they were college age, and there was like that different like elasticity of different comments and notes. Everything just kind of felt from coming from different angles as a result, and I didn't expect that. It was the first time I've seen a video review collection. I'm not sure how to describe it, but it was great. It was when I was seeing it, I was very nervous. I'm very nervous of reviews. I'm a pretty nervous person in general. I'm not an introvert by any means, but I am generally nervous. And seeing that was just like, wow, they liked it. They really liked it. I was like, oh shit. I don't know how else to describe it. And a lot of their comments were very poignant. I think there was one gentleman who I think he had like Funko Pops behind him and stuff. And he was saying that this he felt like this could be turned into a feature. And he was really analyzing the film from what I can remember. I haven't seen it recently, but I was just like, this guy, took his time with the story, and the story is dense. So I'm grateful for him and everybody else who took the time to just peel back the layers a bit.
Yeah, no, there's definitely a story here. You could really get into, speaking of peeling back the layers, you can really get into the world of the cult in
Yeah,
if you expand the film, right? So
yeah. The volunteers, as I call them, that's the only thing I could think of at the time.
volunteers. No, because there's I don't know if you've done some a lot of research on it, but there's a system in place that they're good at, right? So some can argue that the man running one of the man running for president right now is a has a cult like
Yeah.
percent, yeah, right. So
It's a cult of personality. Politics in general has that effect, but definitely one of the candidates running now has years worth of charisma built in from decades of being on screen and off screen and with events that happen. So once that kind of presence once you have that kind of aura about you, it's very
yeah,
tough to kind of get away from that orbit a little bit because whatever happens when you see this person, you have your brainwashed idea of that person already embedded into you, so it's tough to kind of get. And that was the other thing too. I really wanted to try and focus on how you get out of this person's gravity once you're in it, whether it's a cult or a person or whatever the case is. And often enough, you just don't. So in the film, we explore what happens, and he really didn't have a choice in the matter. It's not like he did it, voluntarily. So yeah,
yeah, no, 100%. There's like it's like you can I can understand where your character they always call it like preying on the weak, but it's not really the weak. It's somebody who who is kind of like they're it's like we're all idealistic in terms of like your expectations for life didn't
yeah.
go as you expected them to. So then therefore you're looking for something, right? So and you can always stoke fear in the person. You can stoke like it's like that kind of like I call it like the kind of like the pedestal, like the you're on a pedestal and then you're also kind of like playing the victim at the same time. Where like you're showing how great you are and how you can help them, but at the same time you're stoking fear into them and saying like the world sucks and you need my help, right? So
I think you're 1,000% correct, and I think it's wrong to assume that people who join cults or get into these kinds of like group mob things are dumb or
yeah,
they are simple or they just like a lot enough they're just in pain. They
yeah,
just they just don't know how to process that pain. And when somebody comes in and tells them you're important, your pain is what makes you strong, all these other, flowery notions, as opposed to helping them process it through real therapeutic means. They essentially give them a kind of like a self-medication through empty and hollow words. And you have to be careful of that because that can happen to anybody. It can be happen to a doctor, it can happen to a janitor. It can happen to blue
100%.
collar, white collar, it can happen to artists. Often enough, it happens a lot to us, our types who
Yeah,
just want to try and make a difference in the world, and that can get hijacked by the wrong people.
yeah. In the end, we're all looking for love.
All looking for love, we're all looking for validation of some kind. Yeah.
All right, man. Well, congratulations. Let me know how it goes. It's a great film, nicely directed on all levels. So
Thank you.
I want to see what you do next, and let's keep in touch.
Thank you, Matthew, man. I appreciate the time. My first ever podcast interview type situation for anything. So I appreciate it.